Hello, Rebels of the Sherpa. Normally, I start off this podcast by saying hi, but I'm going to start this one off by saying hydration. We know how important hydration is for our bodies. It's the thing that keeps us running, right? You want to be a well-oiled machine. You want to be running efficiently. You know what can help you run efficiently? Liquid IV. It is the category-winning hydration brand fueling your well-being, and the hydration multiplier is the one product that you are missing in your daily routine. It comes in a little stick that's a powder, and in just one stick, you get 5 essential vitamins and 2 times faster hydration than water alone. If you use it first thing in the morning, maybe before a workout, when you feel run down, maybe after a long night out and doing a little partying, you know what I mean? And even what if you have like a long flight or something like that and you just bleh, right? We all feel that way. Bleh. So add this to your water, and that convenient packaging can go with you anywhere you go, even if you're going to the gym or you're traveling or you're at work and maybe you didn't have a great breakfast. At least it's something that will fuel you up in the morning, and there's a whole bunch of flavors that are available, like sea berry, strawberry lemonade, Concord grape, lemon lime, pina colada, tropical punch, watermelon, strawberry, passion fruit, guava, acai berry. Did I say that right? I never know how to say that. But those are just some of the flavors. Here's some statistics for you folks. 1 stick of liquid IV in 16 ounces of water contains 5 essential vitamins: B3, B5, B6, B12, and even vitamin C. And we all know how important those B vitamins are. It's got 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. It's made with premium ingredients. It's non-GMO, and it is free from gluten, dairy, and soy. I'm going to offer you a great deal, Rebels. If you go to liquidiv.com and use offer code SHERPA, you can get 20% off of anything that you order on that site when you're shopping for some better hydration. So that's Liquid IV. Check it out at liquidiv.com.
Too Many Podcasts is brought to you in cooperation with the SJ Network. If you are a person who would like to appear on podcasts, contact Stephen Joyner at s-j-network.com. We now direct you to the Sherpa Chalet, where we will turn it over to Jim the Podcast Sherpa. How he got this job is anyone's guess.
This week on Too Many Podcasts, it's a chat with Parks McGregor, who hosts the podcast Crossman Productions. It's interesting to note that Parks is experienced in television and radio, while the Sherpa's only level of experience has been looking and sounding like static. If you're wondering how to look like static, just stick a balloon in an ugly sweater. Now you know what a police sketch of the Sherpa looks like.
Welcome to Too Many Podcasts, the podcast about podcasts. Now, podcasting from the Sherpa Chalet on Mount Podcastia, here's your host, Jim, the Podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, Rebels of the Sherpa. Welcome to Too Many Podcasts. It is the podcast about podcasts and so much more. And it's me, Jim the Podcast Sherpa, coming to you from Sherpa Studios, high atop Mount Podcastia, of course, bringing you another interview with another one of our podcasters who's out there in the mountains of podcasts and the like. I don't know why they always say the like and other stuff. I like that. A little more informal. Anyway, why don't we talk about our guest today?
Who's our guest today, Sherpa?
His name is Parks McGregor. He is originally from Chicago, now living in Texas, and he hosts a podcast called Crossman Productions. And his nickname is Cross, but he actually goes into why it is in the interview. It's actually a pretty nice story. And he likes these inspiring stories. You know, he gets to talk to these amazing people and get to share that with his audience. And we got to talk a lot about that. And we also got to get to know Parks a little bit. We had some fun. So why not have a listen to my interview with Mr. Parks McGregor of Crossman Productions. Hello there, Rebels. We are here in the Sherpa screening room, conference room, one of these rooms in the Sherpa Chalet. I don't know. I'm somewhere. I need a map to get around this place. But anyway, through this little video screen, I am joined by a guy named Parks McGregor, and he is the host of the Crossman Productions podcast. And we're going to get to know about him, and we're going to get to know about his podcast, and if he belonged to the Columbia Record Club when he was a little kid. Did you ever belong to that?
You know what? I may have been.
12 albums for a penny? What could possibly go wrong?
Right? Yeah, that's man, that was a long time ago, man.
I mean, who else was going to buy Mitch Miller's greatest hits but somebody with a penny, right?
Right? Yeah, I remember you going down that checklist of checking off all the albums that you wanted.
I always got to about 6, and then I would be like, oh man, I got to twist my arm to figure out the other 6.
Right.
It was like, I don't want any square dancing records.
Right.
So how are you, Parks? It's nice to meet you.
Oh, well, it was nice to meet you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, always a pleasure, sir. Now, how did you get into podcasting?
Well, I've been doing interviewing, for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Just recently during the pandemic, I decided to get back into doing a podcast. With everything that was going on during the pandemic, everybody was kind of social distancing themselves, and everybody was getting online. And I don't know if you were online during that time, but everything just became so toxic.
Oh yeah,
everything was so divided. It was race, religion, politics. So I decided I wanted to do a podcast that would show that we have more in common than we have that separates. So the idea was to bring people in to share their journeys and to help encourage and inspire other people.
Mm-hmm. And we also, I would say, we really also need that now as much as ever too. Even though the worst of COVID is behind us anyway, so we hope.
Right, I agree. No, we definitely need more unity. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And then during this, I'm going on year 3 now, so we're about to start season 3.
Okay,
for Crossman Productions, and I'll tell you what, through the last 2 years, I've met some of the most amazing, just amazing people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. I can imagine. Now, how'd you get the name Crossman Productions?
Well, my nickname is Cross.
Oh, okay.
So, growing up, I grew up in Chicago. So my family and my friends, they all call me Cross. And, when I went into television and radio, I decided to use Crossman Productions. And my mom actually, before she passed, one day she woke up and she told me she had a dream, and she had this symbol. She dreamt the symbol was all around the world. So she drew it out. So yeah, I've used this logo ever since.
How did you get the nickname Cross?
Well, it was short for Red Cross because I was always helping people.
Oh, okay.
So people would call me Red Cross. Hey, go to Red Cross, go to Red. But I shortened it down as Cross. And then, it's just kind of caught on from there.
I like it. At least it's something like positive, because sometimes people get nicknames and like they get stuck with them, and it's like, no, I hate being called that. But at least yours is something out of something positive. So that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the guests that you've had on your show, Cross.
Wow, we've had such an amazing guest. I've ran into a agent, Steve Joyner, who's a friend of both of us.
Sure.
And Steve has brought in some really really cool people. We had Bennett Yerlin in, who was one of the co-writers of Dumb and Dumber.
Mm-hmm.
Larry Hankin, which is just a
everything.
Yeah, that dude's been in 206 films. And then Michael McGlone. I don't know if you know Michael McGlone.
No.
He's from let's see, She's All That, and he was in the McMullen Brothers.
Okay.
So yeah, he was like one of the first big actors they actually had on the show.
Yeah.
And then I met Pooja. Pooja is an actress that's in Chicago, and she was in Chicago Med and The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix. So yeah, I met some amazing people. Here in Texas, they have a show called Vindication, and Todd Terry, Cameron Arnett, Venus Monique, man, just a ton of people, man.
Mhm. Sure. So what kind of inspiring stories did you get to hear from some of these guests?
So what we do is we talk about kind of what life was like growing up.
Yeah.
And then we talk about where they kind of found their purpose and passion in life.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the things that they've had to overcome, some of the lessons that they've learned. We've had, not everybody on the show are actors and, athletes. We've had just, common people. My most memorable interview was with Elizabeth Gerald, and Elizabeth is an activist in Chicago, and her daughter was raped by a child molester, and she ended up committing suicide, and her mom became an activist out there.
Oh wow!
That was probably the toughest interview I ever did. Talking to her about that.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you have to talk to a parent about, just absolute heartbreak, when it comes to their kids.
Right.
Yeah. You almost feel a kind of helplessness when you're hearing them speak, right?
Right. But is such she's such an incredible person. I mean, she's a fighter. She's out there advocating, and working with people who, with teens who are dealing with that situation.
Mm-hmm.
She's dealing with, working with women who are part of, domestic violence. And I mean, she's just doing some amazing stuff out there. I can't give that girl enough props because she's just, she's a strong person. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's what, I think separates people sometimes, that, you get that person that you can let tragedy knock you down, or make tragedy make you get back up and fight even harder.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you get people like that, especially, like, they may not be a name that maybe everyone knows, but
right.
Like, as podcasters, we get to let them tell their story. And you in a small, like that's what I feel like, in a small way, you feel like you're part of that. Like here's a positive message that, that anybody who's got their earbuds on right now, or or they're playing me on their smart speaker, they're going to get that message too.
Exactly. And the whole idea of what we do is, is to really encourage other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, for me anyways, is to, find what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and not be afraid to go chase it,
Sure.
I bring these people in to share their stories, because they share, some of the things that they went through,
Mm-hmm.
Stuff they had to overcome. And it's incredible. Just some of the stories that, that you get to hear is just.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can imagine, sometimes we, like I guess you mentioned earlier, like sometimes we don't know how bad we've got it until we hear someone else's story. And then like, it kind of puts everything that we suffer through, in a different perspective.
Right.
You said that you were in television and radio also?
Yes. So I originally started off on public access television in Chicago. Back when public access was really big. As a matter of fact, I missed my graduation to do my first television show on public access television. So
were you the host of the show?
Yeah. So, in public access, you had to go through this course. It was an 8-week course that you learn all the equipment, and then you had to actually put a show together.
Okay.
The day that we had to put the show together fell on my graduation. So I decided to do that instead of going to my graduation.
So they're calling your name and like, well, no, he's on TV right now. Okay.
Yeah, right.
just mail him the diploma.
So I remember too, my first live event, that we did. We had 5 minutes and we could talk about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, 5 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, So, I don't know, maybe a minute into it, I realized I still had 4 minutes left.
Let's all sing, shall we?
Right. I had no idea what I was going to do for 4 minutes. So That was the most terrifying, you know, terrifying, event in my life, man. I was like, it was crazy.
Now is your podcast, is it video or audio?
It's both. It's video.
Both, okay.
It's live. Yeah.
Okay. Because I was going to say, like, if you ever had a show that where you were stuck in that position again, people are going to see the sweat coming down your head,
Right. You're sitting there, they're like, gotta say something.
I believe it has started to rain in the studio.
Right. Well, the whole premise was I was there to promote a new show.
Mm-hmm.
But I already promoted it within 30 seconds. I was like, oh, this is everything we're going to do. And then I look at the clock and I'm like, wow, that didn't take nearly as long as I thought it would.
They always say that, you usually you have to like budget for talking a little bit more because sometimes like if you're a little nervous, you end up talking fast.
Right. Well, and the other thing too, it's better to have a guest on because like, for me, I was just talking about the show, by myself. It probably would have been smarter to have somebody to kind of bounce off and they could ask questions or, but then we could have made that 5 minutes go, stretch a little longer.
You should have pretended like somebody was like in an audience and say, I'm sure you're wondering about this show.
Right. So the funny thing is that we never did the show the way I wanted it to do. It ended up being a hip hop show. So it was we made our own hip hop videos.
Okay.
So it was completely different from what the idea I had.
What was the original intent?
The original intent was like to go visit places around that neighborhood and showcase different places. But instead, it ended up, that I hooked up with a bunch of rappers in the area, and then we just started filming videos, which was ironic because after I left Chicago and came to Texas, my show ran for a year and a half just off of reruns.
Really?
Yeah. Somebody
did like a syndication deal. You can be a rich man, Parks.
Right? I know they said, I called the studio. I'm like, hey, can I get a copy of that tape, the tape for my show? And they're like, that show ran for a year and a half and you were gone. And we got so tired of it, we just recorded over it.
Either that or the tape broke, right?
Right.
We played this 5,000 times. The tape just doesn't hold on that long. We're not digitized yet.
Yeah. And that was back in the day where, you had to splice, everything together. You got the big reels and, technology has changed so much since then.
Yeah. Well, even sometimes with the, I guess when they digitize too, I guess even if they probably do it that time, I wonder if there's like any degradation where like you would look like, well, here's Parks and now he's pixelated like he's committed some sort of a crime.
Right.
People will be calling you, what did you do? Nothing, just repeats.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know how the show lasts a year and a half. But yeah, this is crazy.
So you were the king of the public airwaves then for a while.
Yeah, I guess so.
Public access airwaves, yeah.
Right. So, and then later I went into internet radio.
Okay.
And we've had a hip hop show. The station was called Heads Up Radio, Heads Up FM, and they played hip hop music from the West Coast and the East Coast, and we brought the music from the South, which we call the Dirty South.
Okay.
And so when I first started, airing on Heads Up, they had like, I don't know, I want to say it was like 28,000 views our first month. And then our second month, we hit, I interviewed a very popular artist's mom. He was shot and killed in Dallas. And I interviewed his mom, and our ratings shot up to 1 million viewers.
Wow.
And then within 3 months, we had 3 million viewers on that internet radio station. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's got to be a little mind numbing too, because, especially when we do stuff like that, and we have like big shows and, you're just talking to the one person and maybe there's no one else around, or maybe, a few technical people. and they're like, "Oh yeah, 3 million people have just heard this interview," and it's this grasping that has got to be like a little crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, and back then, it's not like it is now where everything's monetized, and it was just like, you look at your viewership and they're like, oh yeah, it's 3 million people. What do I say? Okay. I didn't get paid for any of it.
You bring in the millions, and what do they reward you with?
Right. So
you said you were originally from Chicago, and you're living in Texas. What are like the biggest differences? Because I mean, that had to be a bit of a culture shock when you moved down to Texas for you.
Oh, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Hammond, Indiana, which is one of the suburbs of Chicago.
Okay.
And it took me a while to get used to Texas. The first came to Texas, I hated it. My parents moved here when I was 17. When I turned 18, I moved back to Chicago on my own.
Okay.
And it took probably about I want to say about 3 years before I finally kind of adapted to Texas. But now I love Texas. I mean, Texas is home, and once I was able, I think it was a mindset too.
Sure.
Because in Chicago, we were all poor. Mm-hmm. So everybody kind of relied on everybody. When we got to Texas is more independent. They're more like, go out there and work for what you get, and there's not a lot of sympathy, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it kind of forced me to go get things I wanted to get, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it took a while to adjust that mindset from, trying to rely on the people to survive to learning to be self-sufficient and, independent and take care of yourself. Yeah.
And I guess really everybody should really kind of have that sort of balance, You got to know, when you can help yourself, and when, you might need it, somebody to lend a hand for something.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a fine balance there, and there's nothing wrong with asking for help when you need help. I mean, I'm not opposed to that. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was a I guess a learning experience, and learning to be self-efficient and to be independent, and
mm-hmm.
So it was good for me. Yeah.
Sure. And even just like I said, probably just the culture shock itself, when you're going from, a big city like Chicago and outside of Dallas as well, right?
Right.
And,
the biggest thing was the weather, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Because, Chicago is freezing cold, it's cold. But I used to walk everywhere in Chicago, everywhere I went, I just walked. So here, when I got here, I was like, you know what? I'm going to walk halfway across the city to my uncle's house in 103-degree heat, And so I got there, and I swear I was going to die. I thought I was going to die like heat stroke, man. Mm-hmm. So it was the weather. It took a while to get used. It's still in the summer. I hate the extreme heat in the summers.
Yeah. And I'm sure like when you were taking that walk to your uncle's, probably at the halfway point, you're like, well, maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all.
Yeah, you start thinking that, but you're like, I'm already started. I got to get there. So,
but now you're an old pro at it.
Now I'm pro.
And you probably drive a lot more too, right?
Yeah, now I just drive. I don't walk as much as I did.
Yeah, and use the air conditioning.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Parks, now, I'm sure like when you're maybe not working on your podcast, maybe are there other podcasts that you're checking out?
There's I always love working with people on podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started, I met a lady named Anastasia Verkos who had a podcast in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And I would watch her. She kind of stopped doing the podcast, but such an amazing person. She is really an amazing individual, and she had an amazing podcast. Hopefully she'll start back up again. And then I have to mention my friend Pro Slacker, who actually had his own podcast. we kind of combined and did the Crossman Pro show.
Okay.
And then, stuff we were talking about, being going after your passion and your purpose. He always wanted to be a filmmaker. So he kind of left the show to go make films.
Okay.
So, and he's knocking it out the ballpark. I mean, the guy, like right now they're making a film and I can't wait to see it. So, and as soon as, they're done, we'll have him back on the show and, have, some of the, actors and, from the show, and we'll talk about the film. So
what was the name of the show that your friend had? Do you remember the name of it?
It was the Pro Slacker show.
Oh, the Pro Slacker show. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a portion of the show and it's called Shameless Self-Promotion.
Shameless self-promotion.
And I was trying to look you up and like all I'm seeing I brought up Parks McGregor and all you see is McGregor Park. I'm like, no, I'm not looking to go.
Right. That's because everything's under Crossman Productions.
Okay.
If you go under, go to TikTok, Instagram, let's see, YouTube. But YouTube is if you look up Crossman Product,
okay,
you'll see the symbol. And then the only thing you're really gonna find me on with my name is Facebook.
Okay.
So under Parks McGregor. But all my shows are recorded simultaneously on Facebook and YouTube.
Okay.
So,
right. And you said that it's both audio and video. So if people even have podcast apps, they can download you and check you out there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, this is another thing I'm trying to do this for season 3 is I want to meet, and there's a lot of interesting people out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I meet a lot of actors and meet a lot of athletes, amazing people. But some of the just common people, some people that just have some of the most amazing stories. So for season 3, one of the things I'm doing is highlighting an individual each week. So if somebody's looking to get some kind of some exposure, they can go to my Facebook or instant message me and kind of share what their story is, and in some of their social medias or whatever, and I'll be picking people to highlight each week.
Yeah, there you go. You get to be their voice again.
Right, exactly.
I like that. Do you have a dream guest for your show?
Man, I have a lot of people I'd love to have on the show. Dak Prescott. I would love to get Dak on. I think that the guy off the court, I know everybody, off the field, everybody, in Texas is giving him a hard time because of the, Cowboys losing. But off the field, that guy is such an amazing person. And has such an amazing story. I would love to have him on the show. But yeah, there's a lot of great people. One of the people that I just hit up was C. Thomas Howell.
Okay.
So I'd love to have him on. C. Thomas Howell, when I was in 6th grade, we watched The Outsiders.
Right.
And so, being a punk kid, they had us read the book. I didn't want anything to do with the book. I was like, I don't want to read it, And then, we did the test. I flunked the test. Then our teacher showed us the movie. And once I saw the movie, I fell in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
I went back, read the book. I read the book to my younger brother. Got all S.E. Hinton's books and read all of those. So that movie had like a big impact on kind of, me getting into television and doing the stuff I do. So to sit down with C. Thomas Howell would be awesome. So,
okay. Really cool.
Yeah.
So hopefully you will get some of your dream folks on there. But in the meantime, you've got a lot of great stuff going on there and hopefully inspiring more and more people each week.
Oh, well, I appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, Parks. We really appreciate it.
All right, cool. All right, really.
Now it's time for Sherpa Samples. If you've got a podcast you'd like us to sample, contact us and we'll mention your name on the show.
And once again, it is time for Sherpa Samples, and this is the portion of the show, for those of you who are new, where I get to check out podcasts from all around the podcast charts and just kind of fill you in on what they're about. Not necessarily to review them, but of course, if I like them, I will tell you I like them. Or I mean, if I love them, I will tell you that too. And if there is a podcast that I have not yet covered, you know what to do. Just reach out to me, just like the guy said at the beginning of the segment. It's just that simple. And you can do that by reaching out to me on social media or emailing me at jimthepodcastsherpa@gmail.com. Let's start with a couple of podcasts from across the pond, as they say. There is PodSave the UK, and we've got a lot of PodSave shows, and this obviously has to do with a lot of British politics, and there are British commentators who are in this show. Things Fell Apart is hosted by a guy named John Ronson, and I believe it is presented by the BBC, and it has to do with a lot of culture war stuff. The episode that I listened to had to do with an actor whose contrary views became very viral in the culture wars. I guess while we're going foreign, why not go historic too? Greeking Out from National Geographic Kids. I like this show. This was fun. There were so many Greek gods and goddesses, and a lot of the stuff we don't really remember from school, and I like the stories that they tell in this. Really simple and really super interesting. So not just for kids on this one. I like this. The Harry Potter podcast, well, it's just Harry Potter, and this is where the Harry Potter books are read by Stephen Fry. The episode that I heard was from Fabulous Beasts and Where to Find Them. Is that what it's called? And it kind of reads more like an instruction manual, but I didn't know that going into it. But I guess if you are a Harry Potter fan, you already know this stuff, and you don't need me to tell you. And if you need to catch up on some things, then check out the podcast. WSJ Tech News Briefing, which, of course, WSJ is the Wall Street Journal, is obviously short episodes about tech. And the episode that I checked out had to do with Spotify and what they're doing to make money, even though they're getting rid of people. All that money's going to Joe Rogan. That's where it's going. He got another $250 million contract. And yet they got rid of a couple of good podcasts, too. They got rid of Heavyweight, which kind of blows my mind. It was a really fantastic podcast if you want to check that one out. Dateline Originals is actually classic literature in the form of true crime stories. And they featured the story of the legend of Sleepy Hollow. Dr. Death, I'm surprised I didn't really talk about this one sooner because they've had different series of Dr. Death. You can kind of figure out what these might be about. And this one had to do with a very charismatic doctor who could have allegedly been the suspect of a murder case. Dun, dun, dun. And speaking of murder, there's Murder with My Husband. This is done by a married couple, and she loves true crimes, and he doesn't. And they talk about a lot of different crimes, and they both obviously give their feedback on it, as they do on true crime podcasts. And SERIAL-ously is hosted by Annie Elise, and that is a collection of true crime stories and spooky stories as well. I like this one. This was a pretty cool one. And finally, Obsessed. And that is hosted by a lady named Brooke Averick, whom I believe is the hostess of a couple of other podcasts that are out there in Podcastia. And it's basically a discussion of things that she and her co-hosts are obsessed with. You know what I'm obsessed with right now? Going into the outro.
We're on that internet thingy at SherpaLution.com.
A very special thanks to Parks McGregor for coming on the show. And don't forget, if you want to get a little inspiration, check out his show, Crossman Productions. And if you just want to listen to this podcast, where we get to talk to more podcasters and all sorts of goofy things in between, you can hear the show on podcast apps everywhere. But I'll stop right there. Google Podcasts and Radio Public are going away. I can't believe that. I knew about Google, but Radio Public is a really good one. I'm surprised that it's going away, but I guess their time in the sun is complete. Anyway, and also you can hear the show on my website, SherpaLution.com, or the SherpaLution YouTube page, which the ID for that is at SherpaLution and the number 5,000. You just write it all in one little glob, no spaces. And I don't have any spaces left either, so I guess it's time for me to head on out of here. You want to find out some more and keep in touch with the show? Just follow me on social media, X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at SherpaLution. I'm there most of the time. But anyway, you can just read it and see what's going on with the show. And next week, we will be talking with author Jonathan Rosen. And he's written a bunch of children's books, and he also has a really fun YouTube channel, and hope to have you listening next week too. And don't forget about our Sherpa Selects that are on Saturday mornings, where you can hear some of the early shows. And right when I was a young Sherpa, constantly hitting keyboards and not having a microphone and all sorts of other things. I don't know. But you'll get to experience the evolution of your podcast Sherpa. I don't know what that means. Maybe eventually I will be walking erect, but that's a different story. Until then, folks, I'm out of here. I say to you, Viva la Sherpalution.
Thanks for listening to Too Many Podcasts. Please disperse. You can go home now. I said you can go home now. Viva la Sherpalution. Viva la Sherpalution. Oh. Yeah, I'll come back now, you hear?
You know, Rebels, if you've been checking out some of my promotional ads on social media, you will be aware that I have been using a lot of AI programs to help me create ads. But you know what? There's a lot more uses for AI than just funny little videos. And I'd like to introduce one of our new sponsors, Podium. It is a leader in creating AI tools for podcasters. Now, let's say you've got a podcast, or maybe you're even thinking of doing a podcast. You're probably wondering, well, how can AI be integrated with your workflow? I'll tell you about Podium. As a podcaster, you know that writing show notes and creating chapters and transcribing episodes takes a lot of time, and it can cost you a lot of money too. But you know what? That's where Podium comes in. It's an AI tool designed specifically for creators and podcasters with the goal of making post-production tasks quick and easy. And in just a few minutes, Podium generates show notes, chapters, summaries, clips for social media, a full transcript, suggested episode titles, social media posts, and more. Whew, that's a lot of work for one little program. Your show notes are key to your podcast's success because it helps new listeners find your podcast and they'll know if it's a fit for them. You know, kind of like Too Many Podcasts. It also improves your SEO, that's your search engine optimization. Ooh, big phrase there. And overall accessibility. And with Podium, you can focus on creating a great podcast and let Podium's AI do the heavy lifting. But Podium isn't just for solo creators and podcasters. It's a game changer for editors, producers, marketers, agencies, and production studios. Teams that use Podiums are able to increase workloads, decrease turnaround times, and improve their quality. How does it work? Very easy. First, go to Podium's website, and you'll see that link that's right there in the show notes. You get 3 hours free just to try it. Pretty cool, huh? And using that link also supports this show as well. And you know what else happens? Because I'm a good guy. You use my link, you will get 50% off for your first month. So visit the site, upload an MP3 file, and download your files, and that's it. And if you need anything else, you can use Podium GPT to generate articles and any marketing copy you might need in seconds. Instant show notes, transcripts, chapters for your podcast or channel. This will level up that podcast. So check out Podium today.